is a huge rift developing in the gaming industry because of the spectacular rise of the prediction markets. It's a rift so deep that the American Gaming Association, which represents casinos and sports books, issued an ultimatum. Anyone who plays in the prediction markets cannot be a member of the AGA. And so DraftKings, FanDuel, and Fanatics left. And now the AGA is bringing on as a strategic advisor former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who spearheaded the fight to get the Supreme Court to clear the way for states to legalize sports gambling. Governor, it's great to see you today.
Great to be here, Contessa. Thanks for having me.
Talk to me a little bit about why you are fighting prediction markets.
Well, it was a 6-year fight that I led and New Jersey led to get sports gambling available to be legalized and regulated by states. And a long and expensive fight that we won against the leagues. And now we have someone coming in these prediction markets who is blatantly breaking the law in states across this entire country. 40 states have legalized sports gambling, and with that legalization, taking the responsibility to regulate it, to make sure that they're protecting the integrity of the game, the integrity of the folks who are taking bets from the consumers, to make sure that those odds are fair, that the payments are made. All those things are happening every day. And on the integrity issue, it's being done in conjunction with the leagues on a very close basis. And as you saw recently, Contessa, with the problems at NBA and MLB, let me make one thing really clear. The only reason we know about that is because state regulators discovered it and worked with the leagues to turn it over to law enforcement. If we did not have that regulation, it's more likely than not we would have never found out about it. Now we have these prediction markets going into states where there is no regulation, or just absolutely flaunting the regulation in the states where there is. That's bad for the integrity of the sport. It's bad for consumer protection. It hurts tax revenue in those states. And bottom line, it's against the law and they need to be stopped.
I want to make it clear, I'm not a lawyer. I know that you are, and you could probably explain the legal issues surrounding this far better than I. But my understanding is that Kalshi says, one, we are regulated. We're just regulated by the CFTC at the federal level. And so that federal regulation supersedes any state regulations. How do you address that argument?
Not in the area of sports gaming, because in the area of sports gaming, the federal government has specifically not regulated sports gambling. And that's why we won the lawsuit in the United States Supreme Court. So Kalshi is just lying. That's what they're doing. The CFTC is not regulating them when it comes to sports markets. And in fact, what they're doing is operating in violation of state law in many states. And in states like Florida, for instance, they're violating the sovereignty of the tribes. In a place like Florida, who are running sports books in the state of Florida. And in the other states, Contessa, they affirmatively made the decision, a state like Georgia, for instance, that they didn't want sports gambling in their state. Well, that's the right of the state to make that decision. And Kalshi's saying, no, we know better, and we're going to operate in your state without any regulation. The idea that CFTC is regulating sports is untrue, and Kalshi knows it.
You know, it's interesting. You brought up Florida, where Hard Rock, which is owned by the Seminole tribe, has basically a monopoly in the state to offer not only sports gambling, but casino gambling as well. DraftKings and FanDuel and Penn Entertainment all tried very hard. They were putting it to the voters to try and get in and offer commercial sports betting there, and it just didn't work. The same thing happened in California. The tribes were able to come up with such a strong defense that it didn't go anywhere when it went before the voters. In this case, now you've got DraftKings and Fanatics has launched. FanDuel is launching this month as well. Predictions markets. And that will allow them to get into the most populous states in the nation, California, Texas, and Florida, where they have not been able to offer their product. Is there a difference, do you think, in offering predictions, these yes-no questions? They're saying it's not against the house, it's peer-to-peer or peer-to-trader, and wagering against the House where the sports book is setting the lines.
No, there's no difference at all. For instance, they say they don't offer parlays, which for the people who are watching who don't understand what those are, it's putting bets together on a particular outcome, and you have to get all of those bets correct. They call them combos rather than parlays, and they say that's not a parlay. Well, all a parlay is a combination of bets that they set odds on. Look, these folks who have gone into California, Texas, and Florida are doing so in violation of the law and in violation of the will of the people of those states. In California and in Florida in particular, the voters have specifically said that they didn't want this. That's their right. It's their right to say they don't want it. And the only thing that happens in a state like Florida or California is because of the sovereignty of tribes on their land, they're permitted under federal law to do that. But what the tribes have done is to work with regulators in those states to make sure that they're doing things in the right way. You don't see that with the prediction markets at all.
If that's the case, then why hasn't it been a slam dunk for the states, for the tribes in federal court? This is moving forward in multiple jurisdictions right now, but it's been kind of a mixed bag. I mean, Kalshi's won some and it's lost some.
Kalshi's lost everything that's mattered so far. And the fact is that this stuff takes time. Remember, it took us 6 years to get the United States Supreme Court to allow state-regulated sports gambling across the country. So unfortunately, it takes a long time for these things to work their way appropriately through the courts because everyone has a right to be heard in court on this matter. But in any of the places where it's really mattered, Contessa, at all, they've lost and they're going to continue to lose. And the fact is that it's wrong for them to violate state law by going into a state that has a regulatory scheme for this stuff. And it's wrong for them to go into a state that says we don't want sports gambling in our state. They're violating the law for profit and they have to be stopped.
Governor, you're a former federal prosecutor. What's your prediction here? Does this make it all the way to the Supreme Court?
I think it will. I think it will make it to the Supreme Court. And look, it's not like the CFTC is out there saying, oh, don't worry, we're handling all of it. Well, the only person who's saying the CFTC is handling it are companies like Kalshi. The CFTC is not saying that they're taking care of it. And let me be clear, I'm not, have any view on the prediction markets in non-sports related matters, whether it's on elections or on other issues. But as I've said before, right now, one of the companies is offering for you to go into the prediction markets and make a bet on whether a student athlete will enter the transfer portal in NCAA football in January. Imagine how much that could be manipulated, Contessa. What if a gambler comes and offers a huge amount of money for a young man or woman to not go into the transfer portal? And they're then changing the nature of the sport and they're corrupting these athletes.
I don't want to speak for the prediction market companies themselves, but what they have argued is that that sort of inducement takes place already. And we've seen the allegations in Major League Baseball. We've seen the allegations in the NBA. And what's more, if you look at trading equities and the allegations there that people can and sometimes do trade on insider information, which is also against the law, that the regulations are there for a reason. They are supposed to be the frameworks, but do things go wrong? Do people get away with behavior that they're not supposed to? Yeah.
Well, Contessa, their argument is since other people are doing bad things, we're allowed to do bad things. I think our mothers taught us that wasn't the way the world was supposed to work. The SEC is there actively monitoring, as you know, standing where you are. They're actively monitoring the markets on a regular basis. In every state that has authorized legal sports gambling, they are actively observing and regulating what's going on. The only reason that the public found out about what those incidents in the NBA and MLB is because state regulators were working with the leagues to monitor the betting that was going on at these books and then to turn it over to law enforcement. No one is doing that when it comes to Kalshi or Polymarket. No one. And they are not turning over information either to law enforcement.
We have seen an influx of big names in the economy coming into this new market. You've got CBOE, you have ICE, you have the CME, and Robinhood coming in and saying, we're interested, we think this is the next big thing, and we're all in. Does that give even the sports prediction markets the imprimatur of credibility?
No, it doesn't. And if these big folks want to get in, they can get in for other topics. If they want to get in for sports, have them go through the regulatory process in the states where they want to operate, pay their licensing fees, pay their taxes, and make sure we protect the integrity of the sports. You know, that's a very simple. It's not as if our fight was so that people could do this, but to do it legally and under a regulatory scheme that gave confidence to the consumer that if they made a bet, they'd be paid, gave confidence to the consumer that the odds would be fair, gave a confidence to the consumer that the integrity of the sport wouldn't be compromised. What these prediction markets are doing now is operating outside of that regulatory scheme in violation of the law.
Do you think, Governor, that there is a way for the gambling industry that is fighting the prediction market, so the American Gaming Association, to credibly work with companies that offer gambling and predictions? Is there a way forward without having this rift within the gambling industry?
Not on gambling, there's not a way forward, Contessa. On gambling on sports, there's not a way to go forward on that because the states have the right to regulate this. It was given to them by the U.S. Supreme Court. It's creating tax revenue for those states every day. It's creating a sport with integrity. It's creating a monitoring system that makes sure that consumers are protected. And if they want to get into that, they have every ability to do it in 40 states across America by working across the regulatory scheme. Instead, they want to do it illegally. Instead, they want to do it in a way where they're not regulated or monitored. Guess what? Everybody, you know, the folks on the NYSE behind you, I'm sure there are some companies who would love to come in if they didn't have to comply with the regulation of the NYSE or the SEC, but that's not the way it works, and it shouldn't work that way in the 40 states where sports gambling is allowed, and they certainly shouldn't be able to violate the rights of the citizens in the 10 states where they have decided not to allow sports gambling.
We're coming up on 8 years since the Supreme Court overturned PASPA, which was the law that prohibited states from legalizing sports betting. That was a case that you championed, you spearheaded because you wanted to see legalized licensed sports betting in New Jersey. Paved the way for a lot of other states. I think we're up to 39 states now and Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. Are you happy with the way that sports betting has played out? Are you content with the amount of advertising that you see and the marketing and the promotions in and around games?
Look, I am predominantly happy with the way it's worked, and here's why. Because people have the ability to bet responsibly on sites that are regulated with sports that are working in conjunction with the regulators to protect the integrity of the sports and the rights of the consumers. You know what the alternative was, Contessa? People, running through sports books that were run by organized crime, where none of that was going on. And you could be sure that they were attempting to influence things behind the scenes in a way that was very unseemly and not necessarily being fair to their customers either. So look, do I get sick sometimes of some of the advertising that I see in terms of how much of it there is? Sure, like every other consumer probably does. But that's the way we market things here in the United States, right to the point of saturation. But in terms of the way it's operating in states, it's operating legally, it's operating to protect the consumer and to protect the integrity of the sport. And that's exactly what I envisioned when we brought Christie versus the NCAA. And so I'm very proud of what we accomplished. And I don't want to see it ruined by folks who decide they just can flout the law to make a buck.
And one last question for you here. Do you think that the sports leagues have a role to play as we see the popularity of prediction markets expand? I mean, you've got the NHL now partnering with them, the UFC, but the NFL and the MLB holding back.
I think they will hold back because they understand the ramifications of it. And so I think they should continue to hold back in that regard because they are working with folks now at the state level who are working hard with them to protect the integrity of their sport. The prediction markets simply are not.
Governor Chris Christie, now a strategic advisor to the American Gaming Association. So I guess that means we're going to see more of each other. Governor Christie, great to talk to you.
My pleasure, Contessa. It'll be great to do that.